This is More Knowledge, More Wealth with your host, Gabriel Shahin. Gabriel is a certified financial planner and a registered investment advisor at Falcon Wealth Planning. This show does not intend to provide personalized investment advice through this broadcast and does not represent that the services or securities discussed are suitable for any investor. Investors are advised not to rely on any information contained in the broadcast in the process of making a full informed investment decision. Now here's your host, Gabriel Shahin.
Good day. This is Gabriel Shahin, certified financial planner and your host of More Knowledge, More Wealth here on every weekend, talking about all important topics of personal finance. My job is to go over the knowledge you need to increase your wealth. Now, to the listener, you can always reach out to myself or any one of our colleagues here at Falcon Wealth Planning. Our phone number is 855-963-2526. That's 855-96-FALCON, like the bird. Or visit our website at falconwealthplanning.com. That's falconwp.com for short, where you can go on our Knowledge Center, which gives you a direct link to YouTube, where we've had well over 1 million views, multiple videos that help answer the questions that you have. And if you want to put an inquiry so we can talk about it on the show or create a Knowledge Center video, please send your inquiry to radio@falconwp.com. That's radio@falconwp.com. And also you can go get this episode, any one of our previous episodes on Spotify, podcasts, you name it, folks. Now, I'm the president of Falcon Wealth Planning. We are a fee-only, non-commission, true fiduciary, folks. And we talk about all important topics of personal finance. That's where you are today, how retirement looks like, investments, estate planning, insurance, folks, you name it. Anything that involves a dollar sign, we can help you with. And we are offering 1 to 2 meetings, 1 to 2 hours of our time, folks, at no cost to help relate this show to your specific situation. And we have offices all across the country that we can help you with. Folks, give us a buzz. Our phone number is 855-963-2526. That's 855-96-FALCON, like the bird, where we can help answer those questions that you have to help with your financial situation. We're going into another week here of the fires in California, and I promise you I'm going to talk more about the fires here and the financial impact that it's having. As we're hearing more about the insurance, the FAIR plans, we're hearing more about FEMA's help, 6 months of coverage and everything. And we are going to have snippets in here to talk about what people should do, or at least not what they should do, it's their personal choice, but the options that they have available and the impact of what that causes. So I am going to still in that gathering of information stage, but it all starts with you and here in America, let alone Southern California. Just our hearts and prayers are for those people who have lost everything, and as the fire continues to rage. And so just want to take a moment here during our planned programming to have a special snippet just saying our hearts and prayers are for you, Southern California, and to really everybody that's going through duress around the world, let alone our country. Lots to talk about today, folks. Welcome. We are here on MLK weekend, same day as Inauguration Day, January 20th, right around the corner. And I mean, always a lot going on, right? So there's always something to be worried about, something to think about. There's always something to freak out about. But finally, we're going to have some normalcy, or whatever your definition of normalcy is, over the next 4 years. And we're finally here. The world hasn't burnt down just yet for some of those that are still worried. And taking a look at just, hey, what are you doing to start off the year? Now, I'm going to go over later the top 10 things that Bankrate.com says that you should be doing. And I get the logic behind that. And I'm actually going to go as far as critiquing that as well. But I thought, let me kind of go over some things that just make sense for a lot of you. And here's the thing. Some of you aren't fully aware of some of the cool things that you can be doing. Now, we are fully aware of funding your accounts early. It makes a lot of sense. 4 to 5 years, the stock market goes up. So the sooner you do it, the better. Now, here's one of the biggest mistakes that people make when doing that. And it is your required minimum distribution. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they wait till the end of the year to take out the required minimum distribution, which I get it. It makes actually all the sense in the world because of what we just said. Because we know it's going to grow, wouldn't you rather have it grow and then take the money out at the end of the year? So your money got growth for that year, assuming, right, it's like 80% of the time market goes up. But this is where people are wrong. because this assumes you have to take your required minimum distribution in cash. And of course, you don't want your cash sitting at the bank earning 0 point nothing. But how about, have you ever considered to RMD shares and put it into your taxable brokerage account? Yeah, you heard me. So if you have 100 shares of Apple, whatever that might come out to, let's call it $25,000, assuming that's your RMD amount, and you transfer the shares out. If in fact it goes up, well, you're having that growth outside of the IRA or 401k or any tax-deferred retirement account, which 4 out of 5 times is a good thing, because even if you made money, oh, by the way, on the brokerage account, it's always taxed at a lower rate in regards to stocks for long-term capital gains than ordinary income, which is your retirement accounts. Well, what do you mean? Well, if you're in the 12% tax bracket, you take out $25,000, you're paying taxes at 12% plus the state. Well, if you're in the 12% tax bracket and you actually made money on a capital gain, long-term capital gain, it's tax-free. So it's better, 12% or 0. Now, I'm not saying it's all the $25,000, because remember, you've already paid tax on the $25,000. That becomes your cost basis, right? So if the stock were to double to $500 a share on the growth, it's actually tax-free in that specific situation. Well, let's say you're in the 24% bracket. Well, on a capital gains rate, you're at 15. Let's say you're at the highest tax bracket. You're at 20% instead of 37. Any way you slice it, it's better to have money there. So if you're worried about the growth. So people do it backwards. Why? Because they don't understand tax planning. They only understand growth of their money. Tax planning is huge, and it's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people do, and it's my recommendation, number one, what you should be doing, of course, if you are 73 years old or higher, you should be taking required minimum distributions. If you are charitably inclined, you can do a QCD into the charity. You can pre-fund it early, give it to the charitable needs that you desire early in the year. That could also make a lot of sense to get that out of the way. Some people take their appreciated stock and they put it into a donor advised fund. Just get that write-off, get it out of the way. I get it. It makes more sense to do it at the end of the year. It really does, for a lot of reasons, assuming on the appreciation, you know what your tax bracket is, you know how much you should be giving. But if you made, for example, a commitment, a grant, or whatever the case is, where over the next 5 years you have to give $5,000, whatever it may be, it may make sense to do it now. It may make sense to take advantage of it today, where you could just be done with it beginning of the year and you are done. So that is another recommendation. Yet again, I see people just missing the boat on this time and time again. This year in January should always be the year you're the most busiest. Now, quite frankly, it's kind of like people are done with the hangovers from Thanksgiving, from Christmas, from New Year's, and they're like finally ready to get back into normalcy. I almost feel like it's the MLK hump, right? We just got back and then boom, we all got the Monday of MLK off, right? For the most of us. But it's really after that where we really power through. There's not much going on in February, not much going on in March, not much going on in April. You know what I mean? There's really not anything until the end of May with Memorial Day. So this is like really when we start powering through the year. So the idea with all of this, of course, is to make sure you're planning early on. By the way, folks, if you're just joining me, you're listening to Gabriel Shahin, Certified Financial Planner, and your host of More Knowledge, More Wealth, here on every weekend. And we are talking about all important topics of personal finance. Today I was just talking about some of the just low-hanging fruit you should be doing early in the year. A lot of what you hear people do is backdoor Roth IRA contributions, or front door, depending on your situation, just a normal contribution. If you have higher income limits, then you have to go backdoor. Get it out of the way. Makes all the sense. Start investing and be done. So that is another fantastic tool. Makes a lot of sense. Put as much money in a Roth as possible. And oh, by the way, if you're like, yeah, but then I can't touch it until 60 years old, 59 and a half, whatever the case is. Well, first off, if you have money in a brokerage account, it's the same concept, right? You have money invested, might as well move it to the taxable or a tax-free situation in a Roth. And oh, by the way, you can always take that money out, penalty and tax-free. Now, not everything, just the principal you put in. You put in $7,000, it grows to $70,000. You can only take out that $7,000 completely tax and penalty free. It's that $63,000 of growth, which is subject to not taxation, but penalty. Also important to note with that as well, that there are still many reasons you could take money out and it could still be penalty free. Here's another thing, HSA contributions. You can put money in. For that, you can get that tax write-off, which is always fantastic. And you could also, here's the thing, you can resubmit for reimbursement on previous years as well if you missed out on it. So you can put money in and get that money back, assuming you fully liquidated, didn't have enough money for the previous tax year. FSA spending. Now, this you typically have to opt through your employer, typically in October, November. But then flex spending account. This is if you don't use it, you lose it. Unlike an HSA, a health savings account, which rolls over every year. Heck, you can even invest into an HSA, which is really cool. But the idea, of course, with that is, beginning of the year, you can do some really cool things. You can actually buy some things you were already thinking about. Give you an example. You could buy new lenses, new sunglasses. I'll take it a step further. Yeah, they have to be prescription, by the way. I was going to get those new Meta smart glasses through Ray-Bans. Now, I can't get them through my FSA, but I can get reimbursed on the lenses because I have prescription lenses. So that's kind of cool. An Oura ring. I was pretty much sold on the idea of that around Thanksgiving during the holidays when my family was telling me about it. Well, I thought, hey, let me get it. I was on the brink of buying it until I'm like, wait a sec, let me see if it's eligible for my FSA. So, sure enough, it was. So I waited till when? Just a couple weeks back. And guess what? The Whoop band is the same. You can even do those levels patches, glucose monitoring, a bunch of things. You could start to do just spend away in early January so you get the benefits of that. So there are some really cool things through HSA, specifically FSA, because if you don't use it, you lose it, that you could be taken advantage of. I have people start ordering the pills and medications now, earlier in the year, so they can utilize that. Here's another thing that I see that people that could be doing earlier in the year, and they forget about it often. I always feel like January is the year of maintenance. And this is where you could, if you own a business, an LLC, whatever the case is, you could be doing the statement of information. You could be submitting for your statement of information on all of your entities that you have. Now, some entities you don't need to do that. Some states you don't need to do that. So it's important to look at what those annual costs, annual fees, annual payments are for the statement of information if you have any entities. And oh, by the way, let me just throw it in there for fun. Make sure that you did that beneficiary form, that FinCEN form, the BOI form, all that stuff that the government was asking. It went back and forth, yay, nay, yay, nay. It looks like it's still up in the air. Probably a good idea just to get it done. Seems like they're not pushing that away. And then 401k, make sure you adjust your 401ks. Even if you just up it by 1%, if you can afford to do it, that's one of the best planning strategies that you can do. So take full advantage of that. And you might have rushed in Q4 of last year to hurry up and max it before the end of the year. And if you did that, then if you were to leave it the same, what if you max it accidentally by August or September or October? Well, you would miss out if you're not contributing. Remember the rule, at least 5%, assuming you have a safe harbor plan, and you get a 4% match, well, then you would lose out on those remaining months because you're not allowed to contribute. So these are important facets that people don't think about with their plan, which is why it's important. This is almost like a quasi-financial planning for you, is you need to understand your situation. Each situation makes sense, but are you relooking at it every single time, revisiting it, recalibrating it every single year? Most likely, people are not doing that, so I'm here to help you do it and remind you, if nothing else. Finally, the last thing, I'm always up in the air about this, but since you're in the beginning of the year, since you're getting everything, you're looking at your financials, probably a good idea just to get an idea of what your liquid net worth is. Take a look at all the investments, all the cash, all the bank accounts, all the money market, all the treasuries, all the investments that you have, and just see what the value of that is. Probably do the same thing with your real estate. Reanalyze your debt. You may think you have a $600,000 mortgage, but it might be $475,000 because you're on the tail end of it. It's just nice to know what it is, just in case you won that $1 billion lotto and you were thinking about running off and paying debt, how much you would have left over. Jokes aside, it's just a good habit to do. Because if, God forbid, something happened to you, you have a document that you can give to your surviving spouse or your kids where they know what you have. And in a perfect world, you say, don't pay this off, or whatever the case may be. Whew, that was a fast first segment. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go over what Bankrate.com says is the 10 best things you should do to start off the new year, financial New Year resolutions. I'm going to give you that rating when we come back after a few words. This is Gabriel Shahin, Certified Financial Planner and President of Falcon Wealth Planning. We wanted to offer you a free financial assessment for listening to the show so you can help relate it to your specific situation. We offer multiple services such as retirement planning, where you are today, how retirement looks like, talking about Social Security, real estate, planning, even if you own a business, talking about taxes, not just how to save money today, but also throughout retirement. Talk about investments, making sure you're avoiding those high fees, costs, commissions, and also estate planning and insurance, just making sure you're properly protected if, God forbid, something were to happen. And we're offering 1 to 2 meetings, 1 to 2 hours of our time at no cost. Give us a call. We would love to help. Our phone number is 855-963-2526. That's 855-96-FALCON, like the bird. Or visit our website at falconwealthplanning.com. That's falconwp.com for short, and fill out the form fill right there on our site. Welcome back, folks. This is Gabriel Shahin, certified financial planner and your host of More Knowledge, More Wealth here on every weekend. We're talking about all important topics of personal finance, and I thought, hey, I gave you kind of my recommendations for some things, just out of the box thinking things that you should maybe be doing financially to start off the year. So we talked about backdoor Roth IRAs, HSAs, health savings accounts, FSAs, which is flex spending accounts, and talking about buying some of those things like those new Ray-Ban glasses. Maybe you can get the lenses, Aura rings, Whoop bands, glucose monitoring, doing things for your business if applicable, statement of information, RMDs, doing them early, 401k, readjusting those, going over your goals, balances, and net worth. Now I'm going to go over the New Year resolutions that Bankrate.com has. I just thought that would be interesting, don't you think? Like, why not? Doesn't hurt, does it? So by going over their top 10 things that you should be doing, New Year resolution is the following. Number 1, consolidate credit card debt. Now, I'm not going to read their whole spiel on it, but that could make sense to find a zero interest credit card, 12 months, 18, 24 months. I actually went over this a few weeks back for year-end planning ideas, and they're saying, hey, why stop at year-end? Also do it in the new year. But this could be a fantastic way, especially if you're having those 15, 20, 25, 30+% credit cards that are out there. Why pay that unnecessary interest when you can, in fact, get a zero-interest credit card? Now, there's 2 ways to do this, depending on how much you use and put on your credit card. For all I know, you're putting $20,000 a month and can only afford to pay $15,000 a month. Well, if you have $50,000 in credit card debts, yeah, that could be an issue. So what you could do, instead of paying a 3 to 4 to 5% balance transfer fee, you could just start using that card and have it accumulate, assuming it's 12 to 24 months of zero interest, while you and just pay the minimum payments on that new card, because then naturally it will go up, and just over 3-4 months you can pay down and pay off those other credit cards. It's a strategic way to save that 3, 4, 5% in balance transfer fee. Yet again, all depends on how much you're actually using the card, how often you pay it down, and what, in fact, is the plan of attack to make sure you do not carry credit card debt and balances. So that's number 1. Number 2, create a practical budget. Now, I love this one. I mean, on one hand, I don't. On the other hand, it's like you should know what you're spending. Like, truly. Like, if somebody gave you a severance package right now for $2 million, would you take it? Like, is that enough to retire? Right? What if you won the lottery for 1 to 2, 5 million, whatever the case may be? Like, can you retire? How do you know that? By figuring out what you spend. Like, and that is maintaining your lifestyle. This is why some people work with a financial professional, because they can help identify that for you, what that looks like. But that is something that's extremely important that gets often overlooked. Create a practical budget. And by the way, if you want to have, like, what's the most you can spend, like possibly spend. Now, we're not talking about just buying things for sake of buying them and then, quite frankly, burning it. Like, that makes no sense, right? I'm going to buy a car, then purposely crash it on a YouTube video because that's great, and it's going to be a $500,000 Ferrari. Like, no, we're being practical here. Like, what would you know, like, on the highest end, if you had $1 billion, what, you're going to buy a private island because you can? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I'm just curious what that is, but you should have your current lifestyle, you should have a good life and a great life. So that's always a good exercise to do. And something psychologically also happens to you when you do that. You actually start working a little harder because you can actually see, and it's more clear what you need to do. You need help with a financial professional to say, hey, how much should I save? How much should I make to make these goals a reality? That's where you look to hire a professional. Because if you don't know how to do it, how are you going to achieve it? Get what I'm saying? Number 3, prioritize saving money. Sounds good. How about this? Save first, spend second. That could be saving in your retirement accounts, maxing those out, Roths, other saving mechanisms with brokerage, whatever you need to save, and then spend whatever you can after that. Start an emergency fund. Great. I feel like it's going in backwards order, right? If you're prioritizing savings, obviously an emergency fund is a natural thing that you should be having as well. So yes, that is something I agree everybody should have. Number 5, boost your retirement savings. Man, I feel like it's a deja vu. Didn't I just mention this right now? Everybody should be looking at the beginning of the year to see if you could just increase it a little bit, a smidgen. You might be getting annual or merit increases in Q1 of the new year. So this is a great time to already start adjusting it before you get used to the raise and start spending the raise, especially if you're the person that just finds a way to spend it. I get it. I know those people. I'm saying prioritize yourself first. Treat it like an expense. Treat saving into your retirement where you're not turning it off or turning it back on, depending on the new expenses that come for the week or month or year. Stay disciplined. Your new mortgage payment is your 401k contribution. Don't mess with it. The sooner you leave it alone, the sooner you have financial stability. And this is sometimes the biggest source of assets for somebody outside of themselves or their house, whatever the case is. Their retirement account will be their biggest source of income generation and retirement for most people that we see. So don't mess it up. By the way, folks, if you're just joining me, you're listening to Gabriel Shahin, Certified Financial Planner, your host of More Knowledge, More Wealth here, and every weekend talking about all important topics of personal finance. Number 6 is learning investment strategies. Now, this isn't just going on Twitter or whatever and people talk about which stock you should buy, but there are strategies of investing. Like truly, the most popular one you hear people talk about is just buying the S&P 500, which makes sense. I get it. But I say it all the time. It's just large cap. You still have, by the way, there's different types of large cap. There's like the Dow Jones, which maybe we'll just say for simplicity could be more value oriented versus the NASDAQ. That's more growth oriented. You may be saying, why would I not want growth versus value? There is a combination of both of them, which do compile to make the S&P 500. And then you start looking at mid caps, small caps, international, and so on. So an investment strategy is important to have. And you have to also know when to buy and when to sell. So that's something which I have a lot of videos on YouTube that can help you with that. Number 7, improve your credit score. I think this part is just always important to do where you do not want to be late. Try to put everything you can on auto pay if you can afford it, at least at the minimum amount. I don't care how much more you're putting on top, but you do not want to miss those payments. If you have any delinquencies, I would heavily recommend to look to take care and satisfy that debt. And credit, I know it may be tough to do that, so it is okay to negotiate with some of these creditors. They want to get paid too. And most of the time, they already made their money off you. So it's not as stressful as you may think, as they also want to settle it before they get potentially 30 cents on the dollar, sending it to a debt collector. Finally, number 8. Financial literacy is an important piece to this, folks. You want to make sure you're continually learning. If you're listening to this podcast, that means you have an interest of money and finance, and those people typically have money and are financially literate. So for those people who are not taking, and whether it's a class, it's subscribing to a podcast, More Knowledge, More Wealth, there's my shameless plug, or just finding somebody to follow like myself on LinkedIn or some of these other places that will always try to teach you of proper ways to invest, not trying to sell you some garbage, some plan, some subscription model that's out there. These are people that are trying to take advantage of you. You have to be careful of that. You want to find somebody that is reliable. And yes, there are multiple books that you can read out there. There are multiple things you can watch. But at the end of the day, it starts with you and learning the basics. And as long as you can find a core element of investing, that's going to be important. And if you do wait until June, we do have the launch of my new book of How the Rich Get Richer. It's not just designed for the rich, right? Because that's quite frankly who we help, but it's designed for people who want to become financially independent. Number 9, update your beneficiaries on your accounts. All your accounts, this could be your checking, your saving, your safe box, let alone your brokerage accounts, your IRAs, your retirement accounts, and so on. I found out a couple years ago when my child was 2 years old that they were not included in my estate plan at all. So poor Victoria, I apologize, but you are now in there if, God forbid, something were to happen. So yes, you do want to always update those. And number 10, look for ways to make money. If you are not satisfied with your current income that you have, we are in this gig economy. You can look for multiple different ways, whether if you have a professional skills, going on Fiverr, going on Upwork. And oh, by the way, you can learn so much from free classes on YouTube and just so many different things out there where you can learn a skill to monetize off it. Heck, if you have a driving license, you could do Uber, you could do Lyft. There are multiple different things that you can do and multiple different people looking for new talent that's out there. Here's another one that I'll reframe their commentary and question of their top 10. That is, see what you're worth. Take a look out there. You may love your job that you're at, but maybe you have outgrown it. Maybe you could see what other people are willing to pay for you. See if you are properly compensated for what you're doing. And it's okay to have that conversation with your employer and take it a step further. Ask them, what's the vision you see for me? Am I going to stay a cashier for life? Am I going to stay in this department for life? How can I enhance what I'm doing to put myself in a situation where I can take a different role in the organization, assuming you're not happy? Some people are very happy where they're at. Not everybody is overly ambitious. Not everybody needs a new scratch to itch. But if you do have that, give your employer a chance to hear you out. Because if you're working in an environment that you like, there is value that they know you, like you, and trust you. There is value to that. And if you feel like you're burnt out, also have that conversation with your employer. You'd be shocked what you can negotiate, especially if you've been there for 5, 10 plus years. Now, if you've been there 5 to 10 plus months, you probably don't have much of a leg to stand on. But for those who've been there for quite some time that have proven the merit of their work and that there's value to keeping you there, they will do what they can to do that. If not, probably not a great employer to work for. That was a fast show, folks. I want to thank you for tuning in with us this weekend. You can always reach out to myself or any one of our colleagues here at Falcon Wealth Planning. Our phone number is 855-963-2526. That's 855-96-FALCON, like the bird. Or visit our website at falconwealthplanning.com. That's falconwp.com for short, where you can go and visit our Knowledge Center, which redirects you to YouTube. We have over 1 million views, folks. And if you want us to discuss anything on YouTube, on the show, whatever, send your inquiry to radio@falconwp.com. That's radio@falconwp.com. And if you want this episode, any one of our previous episodes, you can go on podcast, Spotify. We have them all there. And folks, we want to thank you for your trust. We want you to feel free and feel comfortable to reach out with any questions that you have. I want you to have a fantastic weekend. Have a great week, and God bless.